During our recent Rutgers Business School Executive Education Virtual Lunch and Learn webinar, The Future of AI Top 10 Shifts, we received more questions than we could answer during the session. There's just so much interest in this topic. I have back with me CK Kerley here today to address those questions. Um, Thanks, CK, for taking additional time to respond to our audience.
Absolutely.
Let's get started.
Perfect.
All right. So, our first question, actually, we should tell our audience that we took the questions that you sent in and we sort of grouped them together by look under a couple of themes. And these next couple questions fall under what we describe as the big picture. So, I will start with, is there anything in life as we know it today that AI will not touch or apply to?
I love this question because I love these big thinker questions. And I was going through my days the last few days because we've had about 4 days apart since the webinar at the end of last week. And I got to say that, let me answer it that there is barely anything, if anything, that doesn't become more valuable, useful, and helpful without an intelligence to it. And let me explain this. There are times when we don't want technology, but we'll still want the option. I went on a hike earlier this weekend, and I was like, you know what? I'm definitely turning off my phone, but I have my phone with me if I need it for an emergency or wayfinding. What if intelligence understands me and says, you know what? There's another trail around here you haven't tried yet. So even when we don't want to use it, we should go off grid. We need to decompress. We want it available to us. Even the trees on my hike, I was like, you know what? With the right sensors, we'll know how to better protect our trees or know if there's a new disease going on that we're able to foil, ahead of time before it hurts our forest. So I don't think there is anything we won't want to have intelligence or the ability to have, but sometimes we'll want to definitely go off grid. So, love that question. Let's keep going.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Um, we hear about major AI investments occurring daily. When do you anticipate AI becoming mainstream and universal?
Well, I think the best thing is to give you some data points. It took, I think, 10 months for Facebook to get 1 million users. When ChatGPT, the most popular large language model or chatbot LLM, went ahead and aired, it took 5 days. So, in essence, we're already mainstream with these tools. And I ask each of us to not only see during our days how much we're using it, but how much more we're using it this January. And I'm talking AI overall, not a specific model, than we were last January. I use it as an assistant, as a collaborator, and soon through AI agents, I'll use it as a partner. So, folks, it already is so mainstream. But as they say, the future is here. It's not evenly distributed. So, it's got to get to more groups, the availability, and to more countries, developed and developing.
Well, that's great. That leads right into our next question,
Okay.
which is how fast will AI expand and change the world more? In other words, where are we on the exponential graph of innovation?
Well, I said three things. It's understood that AI right now is the worst it'll ever be. It's the costliest it will ever be, especially with all the new competition. Um, but it's also the slowest it'll ever be. They are already, and the powers that be, many analysts, many thought leaders are already saying we will likely see a century's worth of innovation in just 10 to 20 years. But here's a big one, another data point, because make me sound smart. We have been going through Moore's Law, where the ability of processing chips has doubled every 12 to 18 months. Now we have a new thing called, wait for it, Moore's Law on steroids, where Moore's Law says, hold my beer, because now in a single year, it is 20x to 50x the sophistication of these processing chips. So we are on an entirely new graph, and this will be important when we get into reskilling and what the major points are. But we are already mainstream, and I can hardly get my mind around this entirely new graph of the exponential we're already in.
Wow. Yeah. We have someone who made probably a little bit more commentary maybe than question, but
Yes,
they say at one time personal computing tools included an office suite, typically Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint,
yes.
maybe even Visio or Lucid software for charting, and Zoom and other tools have been added to complete a professional suite.
I totally understood, I believe, where this person was going, because what they're saying is at one point, that was a traditional set. We've already grown to using large language models and other really interesting tools for a variety of uses. So, what they're saying is it's just the new normal. But the normal has always been that we have a set of productivity tools and they keep adding, or the tools themselves keep improving in their features and functions. So I loved that question slash commentary. That was important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they made a great point about new norms. Yeah.
The
And
newest normal. We just keep going across a series of new normals, folks. Yep.
Oh. So our next question for you is, as AI becomes more integrated into our daily lives, in your opinion, what
Yeah.
are the critical elements to ensure AI systems feel more intuitive and human-centric?
Oh, I love this question. Well, there's several. I went across 10 shifts in the webinar, and the thing is that they reinforce each other. So first, AI becoming not only the ability to speak and type and code with natural language, right? What we say is we always carry that fun expression, the hottest programming language is now English. But now with voice mode, we can actually speak to our computers, and we're not speaking to our computers in computer speak. We're speaking like us. But also important is context, is personalized, and them growing on that. Also, these shifts where I may need basic AIs, what we call basic right now, but I may need some for my strategic planning or trend identification with more reasoning to them, much like we don't always wear the same hat in the same activities we use. So it's going to be the whole is greater than the sum of its parts when it becomes more human centric and more intuitive through conversation, through better understanding us, through nuance, through using different levels of intelligence for different tasks. Yep.
Great. So the next question that I have for you, I'm going to read in two different ways for you
Okay.
because there was the first way I read it when I thought there was a typo, and then when I went back and said, maybe that's not a typo.
Cool.
So as typed, it said, which industry is highly adaptive to
Mhm.
AI? And I thought initially that that meant adaptive, but I could see it both ways. Can you?
Well, we're in the adaptive economy right now, right? Which we'll get into more with reskilling. It used to be like learn it once, apply it forever. Now it's invent, reinvent, repeat, right? It's lifelong learning. So an adaptive economy, and what's really interesting about slashing hierarchies is how good we are at skills and how adaptive we are to learn skills, going from know-it-alls to learn-it-all. So I like the adaptive. The most adoptive industries for AI, it's across the board. And I could say in most every industry, where the difference is twofold, right? One company may use it more than the other in the same industry. And two, certain divisions or departments may use it more than others. And this doesn't just have to do with ages, by the way. Marketing may use it than, say, operations. Who knows? But I can tell you, agriculture, a farm is just a physical structure with all this software and analytics in healthcare, in pharmaceutical, finding all new cures. And interesting enough, in technology, where we are automating a lot of the techie roles because we're able to better code. That's not to say that we don't need those same minds doing different work. So it is across the board. It just depends on company to company, person to person, and division or department to department. Yeah.
Yes, I can definitely see how that
But
would.
adaptive is key. Adaptability, the most human of all traits. When we're born, we are adaptive because our very existence relies on it. And when we turn about 2.5 to 3, those parents will remember the why phase. Why is the sky blue? Why is the ocean so big? Why does Christmas come but once a year? Folks, we are naturally wired to adapt and be curious. Yeah, so
Love
adaptive.
it.
Mhm.
Um, our next group of questions falls under employment concerns.
Oh, yes, let's dive into this. This is important.
Um, AI is only going to be increasing in ability and power.
Yes.
Will any of us be employed in the future? Are there any AI-proof professions? Which professions will likely be completely replaced by AI? That's all
I
one
love it.
big
I love
question.
this. This is so important. Okay, so several things because I believe we go into reskilling after this as a big topic. So when we talk about the future, I'm going to go as far out as the next 20 to 30. I hope we're okay with that because in the future, I hope none of us are employed. I hope we gasp at an employment rate versus an unemployment rate, and we can better use our minds to do all sorts of innovative activities. We won't be there yet, not in our lifetimes. So AI is definitely going to be replacing tasks and even potential full workflows that are highly repetitive and rote and can be done with a human overseeing them, but not a human needing to be in them every second of the day. So it's going to be doing that. Also, things that are too dangerous for us, things that we never should have done in the first place. That does not mean at all that we will not have jobs because I'm going to tell you something. It's easy to look back at what technology has replaced. It's hard to go forward. Anyone watching this, no matter what your age is, I swear to you, there were no mobile app developers, there were no AI architects, there were no SEO specialists and the like before the last 20 years. So we don't even know of all the new jobs coming, but also this. When the accountants got Excel software, which they know and use, right? And when they got that, they were able to take their head down from the numbers to looking at their clients and going through more financial planning. So the big thing and the big takeaway is this. When we look at the future, we need to stop looking outward at how we're going to compete with the robots, do that, but inward at what they can't compete with. Questions have always mattered more than answers. We are prompting these systems with a question to find better strategies, to be able to be more curious with new job titles and all of that. So there will be a lot of roles they will be constantly reshaping, and some tasks will absolutely go the way of when the car was replaced by the horse. But even the car is now being replaced. So we just need to be able to be working with them. And if we can, put fear aside and more time into more learning because we've never had a time when we can advance ourselves more in shorter a time by learning the new. That's a big answer, but it's a big question. It is a big
Yes.
question and a big fear.
It
Mhm.
reminds me of something that Dean Lay frequently
Yeah.
says, which is, we're preparing students for careers that don't even exist yet. Um,
Damn straight, 85% of the job titles that kids K through 12, are in right now don't even exist yet. That doesn't mean their experience and their skills won't matter. It means that we are constantly creating new types of jobs. NVIDIA just went through robots and said, I don't think you understand how much we're going to need to train these new robots. And the IT department is now going to become the HR of IT, training all these models rather than what? Spending 90% of their time helping people that forgot their passwords. You see what I'm saying? But we just need to think this way because I know it can be scary, but knowledge and skills are such power. Yeah.
Yes.
Please keep going, Ro, with
We
that.
have one more under employment concerns.
Sure.
Where do you see human roles evolving as AI takes over most tasks with only a small group focused on analyzing AI generated results?
Love it. I'm going to answer the last part of that question first, if it's okay. We are all going to be analyzing AI generated results, whether it's me analyzing how I can do better in my workouts through my AI system that is like a coach to me, or whether it is a marketing department that has more AIs on the job so that they can do more creative campaigns, but they're still going to be looking at all those results. So we are all going to be looking at results and being able to better understand those results. But the first part of that question had to do with how our jobs will change. Tell me the first part again.
Sure, that was where do you see human roles evolving as AI takes over most tasks?
Where I see us evolving is we are still going to need to have the STEM skills, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but we're also going to need more of what's called soft skills, people skills, or power skills. Pick how you want to use the nomenclature there. For the first time in 20 years, 8 out of the top 10 most in demand skills are more people centric, collaboration, critical thinking, being able to manage teams, adaptability, emotional intelligence, not just artificial intelligence. So I see a lot of the roles being a lot more human in the future, much like when ATMs came on the scene, automatic teller machines. And a lot of the tellers then upgraded into human facing roles in financial planning and mortgage and the like. So I see a lot more of that happening. We'll still need AI skills, but we can do it much more easily through conversational AI. We won't have to necessarily code. I see a lot more strategic planning going on. I see a lot more of the sciences will increase because what AI is a scientific method on steroids. So we'll be able to create more at lower cost. So I just see much more human answers, human skills, and human progress. So we will be busy. We will still work a full-time job. I'm sorry, but it'll be
Not
more
sorry, not
fulfilling.
sorry, right?
It'll be more fulfilling. Marketers are spending more time, I call it age of ideas, on ideas and less time on execution because they have these assistants and collaborators in the mix. It's a
That's
fascinating question. I'm sorry, it's a big question. I don't like to breeze for the answer.
um obviously employment concerns parlay well into questions about reskilling. So that's the topic that we'll approach next. If you had to pick just 2 or 3 actions that
Yes,
people should take right now to
yes.
improve their knowledge and facility with AI, what would those be?
First of all, I practice what I preach. So I'm about to tell you I do myself. But before I even do that, Margaret and I did an entire webinar last January that's available on the what? AI Reskilling Revolution that gave you all sorts of strategies as a career executive and as a company to help with reskilling. Um, First of all, I am going to do this by the standpoint of the company and the career specialist. If you're a company, people are not as easily updated as apps. We need to not just invest in R&D, research and development, but also not spend, invest in learning and development. A skilled employee will be as important to your bottom line as a loyal customer. So all this needs to understand that, that HR and training and L&D department isn't just cute over there. It's like Satya Nadella did when he turned around Microsoft after a decade of nothingness into a company that reinvents, a company that puts learning and lifelong learning at the top. So as a company, we need to do that. And as a career executive, I'll tell you the two actions you can take. One, if you're working for a company, to go right to your company if it's not already, and to establish a learning plan. Once a year, you may get employment reviews. You should also get reviews quarterly on your learning plan for that. But as an individual, I want you to set up and I want you to monitor this quarterly. I want you to do it in two ways: formal learning and informal learning. And this is what I mean. Formal learning could be taking a CK webinar. It could be going to these conferences. It could be signing up for a mini MBA at Rutgers. It could be using Masterclass. I sign up with Masterclass once a year and I'm watching all of these wonderful programs, right? And informal. Look at everything as an opportunity. All this social media, guess what? You can follow thought leaders and use it as learning media or business media. Your commute, that can be an opportunity. On the way to work, jam out to your favorite playlist. On the way home, start listening to a podcast. Look at workouts as an opportunity. Can you listen to a great audiobook? Make that a priority because never before has skilling mattered more, and never before, if you lean into learning about these technologies, can you up your value, no matter your young or more mature age. I am 55 and I am just getting started because I continue to reskill. That makes us all relevant. And also, you can use these AIs as a way to reskill, especially with these LLMs in voice mode, going back and forth with questions. So use formal and informal and push your companies to be having reskilling programs and budgets.
Love it. Love it. Um, Here's our next question.
Yes,
With so many technologies evolving in AI,
yes.
what is the best way to stay on top of these technologies? Is there any site or organization that can help us stay on top of emerging trends and use cases?
There are many, and it's going to depend on each and every one of us which ones matter more. In fact, we're starting to do a program with the IEEE, okay? The International Engineering Associations for all of these wonderful engineers, and they're starting a program to help them learn. What are your industry organizations you could use? Also, I'm going to give a little secret here. I use these AIs like Perplexity, masters in search. I use Perplexity to find trends, articles, papers, conferences that are happening that week or that business quarter. So I literally use the AIs to find tools or to help me keep up to speed. I'm still reading through it. I'm still learning, or maybe I'm using them to summarize, right? But that can be extremely helpful. But you're going to find your industry organizations, your alma maters, your close by schools, or even remote learning can help you stay on top of it. Another thing, use these social media as business media. Follow folks that really help you, and you can learn through new colleagues that they follow. Yeah.
That's great. Great
Yeah.
advice. Great
I know
advice.
it's overwhelming. Take what you can on and set a certain amount of hours aside each week and each month. Yeah.
So a little bit more about tools and resources. Since you we started to go there, I'll hit that
Sure.
topic next.
Bring it
What are
on.
the basic AI tools that people should be using to be more productive? Is there a basic list? Likely functions with different options since there's not a dominant choice at this point in time.
At first, I started to scribble down things, and I'm going to give some that I use. And then I caught myself and went, I want you to think about it this way. Margaret, you and I have a lot alike, but I bet the way that you stay most productive And what practices you use may not be the same as I use them. Or I may say to folks, hey, use ChatGPT, which I believe you should use, but some might use it by typing in questions and and getting answers, prompting it, while others want voice mode. The best way that you are best productive is the best way for you. I can tell you some things I use. For example, I use Perplexity for search now because I like the way they go for search on relevance and they don't use SEO and what's most popular. I find that's most helpful. It's most nuanced. Okay, that's one. ChatGPT, I use ChatGPT and Anthropic Claude. I pay all of these services. I'm happy to, a monthly fee. I use them as much for collaborating and brainstorming on maybe new speech descriptions or helping me edit as much as I do to learn as a tutor for me. I'm using tools like HeyGen, which will actually enable me to give a webinar, but then dub it in different languages. I speak Mandarin. I don't really. But you see what I'm saying? To localize. Heck, I use tools like notebook.lm from Google that I can put research notes into, and with the click of a button, it does a his and her podcast that goes over a new way of learning for me. And I use trivial tools like remove background to get more life out of images I bought 3 years back that removes a background so I get more mileage out of them. So whether it's for profound insights or for more trivial uses, those are tools I use. Some of them, for folks watching, you may use the same and you'll have a lot more, but the best way that you're productive and the best way that you're using these tools, that's the best way, you know? It really is. It's what works for you. Thank God we have options, but it's not no two the same, you know?
Oh, that's great. And um, you've really kind of just answered the next question as well, which is what are the top 10 or so AI tools you found that are the most useful? So I think we
Ask me again
kind
in 3 months.
there'll be even
Two
more,
months,
there'll be
and I'll
more
have
to
different
choose
ones.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
This was a very specific question. I remember
Okay.
you talking about using a specific app to prepare your grocery
Oh, I
list
love
and
this one.
shopping. So someone really wanted to know what that was.
What I did, and this is what I love so much, I was talking about how we are now going into agentic AI, or you'll hear the term a lot this year on AI agents. And that turns the oh so traditional, from a whopping 2 years ago, AI systems that handle tasks really well to now, and they're reactive to you, to a proactive agent that we can code or companies can code for us that will do an entire workflow. So instead of a really cool app like Instacart, which is still very cool, I put in my list, I check what I want, or I copy the list from the previous week. I check the time and I get an Instacart set. What I was saying, what an agent would do is it would follow my preferences, it would have my list, it would know where to find coupons, it would go on Instacart, it would check when the best windows of opportunity, set it, forget it. I don't need to worry about it unless I need to worry about it. And I love that someone said, well, CK, why would you gatekeep that information? I wouldn't. I'm just saying it's coming. And in fact, there are probably several of these agents out there that are connecting these different systems. That's called a workflow. How funny that it's so 2023 and 24 to have these independent tasks that we were all so excited about. Now it's connecting. So I'm sorry that I can't give you my grocery app yet, but I will, and it's an agent.
Love it.
Isn't
Love
that funny? Yep.
it. Our final question in this section is,
Yes.
do you have a list of open source LLMs that we can use?
Well, there are open source LLMs, large language models. There are actually NVIDIA will come out with some more too. But right now that I know off the top of my head, like Meta's Llama like large language model, and DeepSeek, specifically DeepSeek version 3. So those are open source LLMs. They're not proprietary. So you can actually customize on your end at the root source, which is beautiful because we're not alike with our needs, and we may need to use both types of large language models. But look for a lot more coming down the pike, especially because NVIDIA and others will follow just promoted a $3,000 AI computer that's the size, it's like this, right? That can
Wow.
fit on our desk and we can run LLMs off of. And that'll be out in May. So trust me, there'll be competition. So this whole open source and being able to much more easily code it, because we can just do it through natural language processing, right? Our natural language. You'll see a boon in creativity, which is another very human skill. Think all these technologies fused with human creativity. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I know,
We
it's
are
cool.
going to move on to the dicey topic of privacy.
Oh,
Um,
cool. I like this I want privacy, so I'm good with
um,
this. Yeah.
and this person asks, I know data is key for the AI to work the best, but how secure is it?
Okay, so AI, because I just want for our listeners to understand, it's important to review. AI has three main components. AI has the AI engine, okay, all the algorithm, the math, and the code, right? The power source, right? Whether that's electric, nuclear, whatnot, it needs to be, powered, and the data, right? It's only as good as the data, and we'll probably get into bias and all those other things, and they're all about data. It depends on a few things. One, how trustworthy and how secure are the companies we're going through? Thank goodness we have these business and social media in case they're doing wrong by us, and we need to know as consumers. So that is one. But two, instead of just cloud computing, and I went through this in the webinar, we'll also have local AI, which means all of the transactions will happen at the edge, not in the cloud, happen right on the device, which keeps them more private. And we're finding that more companies are coming out and saying third parties need to test us for our integrity. And that's like a good housekeeping seal. So it depends on the company. It depends on if it's on the device or in the cloud, and it depends on how up to date they stay with their systems. And it also depends on a lot of regulations, which are important because you want just right regulation for enough innovation, but that keeps our privacy and our best interest at heart.
Oh, perfect segue to the next question that
Oh,
mentions a little bit about that.
yes.
Do you feel that there will be big data challengers to ensure there are guardrails or data governance around preventing discriminatory AI based on the data inputs?
So we talk about how where will all the jobs go? Well, let me tell you something, folks. A lot of these jobs are going to go into forecasting and solving a lot of these problems. I don't just feel there will be big data challenges. I know it. I bet my life on it. Yes, there will be many challenges. And if we remember, my 10th advancement in the webinar was ethical. And we need to have a better way to minimize bias, to improve transparency of when AIs are used, and to cut down on misinformation, and to instill accountability. So that's going to be a big area there around data as well as AI. So I know there are going to be challenges, and not just challenges, say, here as we're thinking about the US, but this is global. So we're going to have different challenges of which we need to learn from. And we're going to have a lot of jobs in this area, which I bet have to do with a lot of the questions you have coming next. Kind of bet.
So our next one is, what are some of the potential issues with privacy and hackers using AI to get into our systems?
There's a lot of issues around, say, voice cloning or what we know as deep fakes. There are and will be a lot of issues on making sure that we are improving AIs to such a degree that they're better than the hackers that are trying to come through our systems. But I want to remind us of all this that the biggest problems we've had in the recent 18 months hasn't just been from hackers breaking through to get to, the root and root source, but actually they're social engineering. They're looking up on LinkedIn and they're finding a name and they're calling a company and saying, Yo, I'm Joe Schmo from marketing. I forgot my password. Here's my email. So it was actually a human. So we need to think. I know technology, shiny objects, it takes all of our thoughts. We need to think 360 or 380, 360 on all of this, right? We need to think it's not just the AI or the tech, but they could be going lo-fi, not, high tech. They could be really gaining an edge there. So, yeah, this is a huge area. It's going to create a lot of jobs. And I'm so thankful. There was an Apple update this week and some consumers disagree with how they were using Siri. And they said, wait, go to your iPhones if you use that and see if you've been opted in here against a best practice. And within 72 hours, we all knew of it. So those communications will help too. These are good questions. These are
They
really good.
are.
Okay.
They are. Our next couple questions fall under regulation and ethics.
Yes.
Um, the FDA has published new standards related to AI and not allowing medical diagnosis to be made by a non-human. So, do you see more of the development work going in the direction of diagnosis assisted models?
It always should. And AI is a decision support tool. It's called CK says, the human plus machine collaboration era for a reason, right? Um, as humans, we can be biased without meaning to be biased because we're just anchored to, well, this diagnosis could be A, B, or C. I've got a large language model with all the information in the world that's not biased unless the data is biased and could say, actually, it could be DE or F diagnosis that helps us, right? I've also got AIs that can listen to the conversation when we want it to listen to my doctor and I speaking, read the notes and scan the images and say, I think we missed something. But it can't do that on its own. It has to be in tandem, and we humans are always in charge. So I absolutely agree with this. I think we're going to come to a place, oh gracious, in the next decade easily, where it'll be malpractice not to use an AI to help with the decisions because we could overlook. Why would we ever, when our most important thing, our health, not want everything available to us? But the human is in charge. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
that's great.
collaboration. Yeah.
Our next question came from someone who read Ethan Malick's book,
Oh,
Co-Intelligence,
it's a great book. Yeah.
and he mentioned the risks, ethical, economic, etc., associated with AI if not properly developed and regulated. What do you
Yes.
think is the biggest risk to the speed at which AI is evolving, and how do you suggest that it be addressed?
A couple things, but first and foremost, I mentioned masterclass is a way that I learn on my own. Ethan Malick, along with others, but he was in charge, just came out with a three-part or maybe four-part masterclass in the last 2 months, and it's well worth the watch. So is this asking about what can be the biggest challenge in my opinion? I would say right now, my biggest concern is misinformation and disinformation. There is a difference. Misinformation is a mistake, disinformation is on purpose. This can also include AI bias, which, if you're a student of mine, you know I hate, hate, hate the phrase AI bias because those AIs aren't biased, are human languages, and that's what we've taught them on, right? And with that bias, or with bad actors, or just with misinformation going out there unchecked, which we won't talk about all the fact checkers being let go and all that. That'll be another subject we'll talk about soon. That is my biggest concern. And not just in highly developed countries, folks, in countries that the illiteracy rates are higher or they just are not understanding yet. These are huge implications or ramifications because this is not just another technology. This is a whole new age, which again is why I talk about ethics and how that has to cut across all. And we need to figure out that just right regulation that ensures good practices, but doesn't hamper innovation. Yeah, but yeah,
So, our next question is
yes,
pretty deep.
I'm getting grilled. I love it. Okay.
How will AI decide whose ethics to enforce? Different groups of people and religions have different ethics and morals. So, how will AI make decisions across these?
It won't. That's where humans come in. I can already tell you with AI bias, again, biased systems because of humans that have been training AI on this language. I can already tell you that we need to have much more diverse teams at the input and training level to clean the data, right? And we need to have these teams as well as we consumers and businesses flagging these systems and these feedback, right? For these potential biases. But we also need to train them. It's nuanced. One size does not fit all. We need to train them for specific groups, specific beliefs, specific societies. So the AI is not in charge of that. You and you and you and you and you, we are. That's what's so important there because the quality of the output is always matched by the quality and the direction and the structure of the input. So I love that question because it is concerning, but it won't. That's where we come in. Think of AIs this way. AIs are kids. At first, we're the parents training them, but the more data they get, that's all the societal learns and biases and all of that that they continue to learn as they grow. We're in charge of making sure that they stay with the truth and objective and improved methods. Yeah, and learnings.
There's no set it and forget it, right? We have to stay involved in the process.
They may get better at certain workflows that we're constantly checking, but when it comes to these kinds of imperatives, there is no set it and forget it. Nope, 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 nope.
All right. Our next couple of questions have a little overlap with that ethics and
Okay,
privacy, but start to, go in a little bit different direction too.
sure.
So, is it true that AI uses more energy thinking in terms of the data centers and could have an environmental impact?
It is true, and it will have if we don't come up with better solutions, which a funny thing when there's a revenue line and a profitability line tied to these systems, we tend to figure out the answers, which is a good thing. I'm gonna harken back to a technology that we still need for trust and verification, blockchain and distributed ledger technology. So in the past, oh gracious, 8 years, a major player in cryptocurrencies and smart contracts is known as Ethereum. Before Ethereum figured out a new way to execute a system, it used to be proof of work, now it's proof of stake. They used 99% more energy and computing resources, and they were able to switch over. We were as a nail biter. And they did it beautifully because they were already using as much energy as a small industrialized country. They've come down 99%. We are already seeing acquisitions and nuclear energy coming back into our conversations because it's cleaner energy, it's now safer, it's more regulated, because companies know they cannot continue at the rate we are with our energy resources. So, funny enough, AI hopefully, but may very well make us better environmental citizens because we will have to be better at it and we need to get cleaner at it. So it will happen. This is a great question. And I am excited with the conversations and already the progress I'm seeing. Mhm.
Fantastic. The next one is a long one because there's a little setup for it. So this
Okay.
person says, my understanding is that many biases are baked into the training data.
Yes.
There is an example in which one of the large learning models learned roughly inaccurately that all doctors are male and that female doctors are a separate, far less common category. That obviously sexist and terrible reality was because the training data, pulled from years of medical journals, explicitly included distinctions between doctors and female doctors. Are you aware of successful approaches LLM labs and companies have
Yes.
found to address inherent bias in the training data?
Our poor AIs. That AI was not at fault because we made the distinction. So I always say this is a time in it's so historic because a mirror is being held up to us to see these biases. And when we can see them, we can solve them. So just having systems where we make sure that departments around ethics are not done away with, we need to make sure of that and regulated. We need like good housekeeping seals like that too. But having these teams at the outset go through this data before it's just scraped to be trained on, alpha tested, beta tested before it's, ready for prime time. But it doesn't stop there. We continue to be watching those results. And we have the best thing will be users like me and you and everyone watching being able to easily flag a result and say, there's a bias here. So absolutely, this person is right to say this, and we have found it, and we're going to find even more. That is why ethics across bias, which is fairness, transparency, and accountability. Because when we find out that we hold companies accountable, and companies are not inherently evil, but they sure don't like spending a lot of money on, a regulation that they have not followed. So those kinds of things are absolutely coming in droves and need to be. I so appreciate these questions on this. Yeah.
All right, our next one is, what are the challenges for humanoids to use AI? Robots have existed in different capacities, but it seems we are missing even going for the next steps, let alone fully automated ones.
So there's a lot of systems, AI and otherwise, that you could use this question for. So humanoids, just I want to make sure that I'm being clear. Humanoids, what a word, mimic the human form and movements because we have built a world around human form and movements, right? But there's also other robotics like AVs, autonomous vehicles, right? There's also manufacturing robots, heck, your Roomba and the like for vacuuming, right? And how many cute ducks and cats and dogs in those videos that ride those Roombas? Okay, so there are so many steps that are necessary. Chief among them is for these humanoids and robots and AVs to better understand one, space. Two, human movements. Three, that humans are really messy. We don't follow certain patterns. If you believe that, you should go on one of the California freeways that's close to my house right now, right? They need to better understand that, and that's why the training is so big. One thing I've loved about the CES show, Consumer Electronics Showcase, that happens in Vegas each year, is I'm hearing the words world foundation models. Ooh, that's cool. What's a world model, CK? Just like ChatGPT works off of a large language model, we need a world model. One of the shifts I went through in the webinar, physical, right? To better understand and traverse the world around us. So there's so much training that needs to happen, not on language, but literally on those in manufacturing today, teaching humanoids and teaching robots how to actually do the actions and how we move. It's fascinating. So that's just one. Now we got energy sources. Oh, it's wonderful to have a world full of humanoids to fold my laundry, to make my lunch when I need it, to do my grocery. Do you know how much energy they'll need? Right? So it's all of these steps. Now, again, this is easily $1 trillion opportunity, so we'll figure it out. But this person is absolutely right, and there's many steps. I guess the first step is to conceive of it and figure out what it will do in the applications. And then we got to figure out now how we're going to make it a reality and an affordable one. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, these
interesting.
folks ask big questions. We're probably at 45 minutes to an hour here, and the webinar was an hour. That speaks to the fact that we're learning. Yeah, I love this. Okay.
It does, but we are in the home stretch, and
Okay.
our last section is on I guess my industry, if you will, education. So I will start with this question.
Yes.
What's the best way for professors to incorporate AI into their classes and to AI proof their assignments?
So when we talk about AI proof, I believe we're talking about I don't want you cheating when you go home and not learning your lesson. Oh my gracious, I would sound like that if I was a teacher. No, I wouldn't. I don't want you cheating, right? I want to make sure you're learning the lesson. Is that what you get from this question as well?
That's my takeaway as
I'm going
well.
to give you the most straightforward way of doing this. And everyone's going to go, huh, that was a very basic human response. Why don't we flip the paradigm? What does that mean, CK? That means for your homework, you're going to watch the lecture. Before your classwork, that's where you need to do your homework. That's when I need to see teams working together. That's probably when these students have the most questions. And God bless parents out there. I am not a parent, but I'm in such awe of you parents that come home from a long day at work only to sit at the table and, I don't know, learn geometry again while you're trying to teach it to your kid. God bless you. Flip the model. Those teachers that have, they're busier than ever. Those students are firing off questions, and many of them want to bring an AI in. And many of the equations I would do, we were allowed certain calculators. We'll find when it's necessary, but this absolutely promotes learning, critical thinking, collaboration, teamwork, and adaptability, all human skills. Oh my gosh, we're making a full circle. Keep going.
Okay, next question.
Yes, ma'am.
How will the rapid changes in AI affect the job market, career development, and K-12 education?
You thought you were busy before. I'm going to put this in three buckets, and please understand that while I am an educator, I'm not an administrator. So I hope I do this right. Let's say K through 12, which could be three buckets itself, but stay with me. Higher ed, and then learning, like lifelong learning and executive education. Okay. First of all, this is the time of having to learn not just a lot, but stay with me, having to learn how to learn more quickly, accelerate learning. So it's not just what we're learning, it's how we're going to learn more quickly. So that's one. We need to teach our students that in all three buckets. Second, there's no one and done. There's no learn once, apply it. So this executive education and constantly learning, which is a good thing. It's a good thing for our brains, folks, is going to be part of our companies and our careers. So we're going to have a lot more of that. And we're going to need to bring a lot of these technologies more into the classrooms and flip that model like I was talking about before, because things are happening so quickly that we're going to need humans to better teach us. So having that collaboration in the classroom, I think is going to be paramount. And I think teachers are going to need more tutors for kids and grown-ups that have different strengths and weaknesses in different fields and tailoring that education. It's such an exciting time for education. It's such an exciting time. Yeah.
It
I think we
is.
have one more on education or two more on education.
Well, we have one person's question, but it was a multifaceted question for sure. You
Oh,
addressed some of it, I think,
okay.
with your previous response, but I'll read through the whole thing.
Yes.
What can be done to enable our students in K-12 to get educated for this AI age when current educational systems are
Yes.
still teaching the old ways? How can they innovate and adapt versus be left behind, yet still learn the fundamentals of critical thinking, learning, reasoning, and communication?
So critical thinking, reasoning, and communication, soft skills are back, baby. So that's more important than ever in all those three buckets. That's one. Two is, I think it's going to be a two-pronged effort. One, I think that more parents need to, because it is up to the parents working with educators and educational systems to say, we want these involved in a way that balances it. And that flipped classroom may be very helpful with that because it's really all sorts of strange that we're like, don't touch technology, except when you graduate, you better have technology skills or you're not employable. You see? So, the academic institutions and academia overall needs to have a balance and work with the parents on that. But also, I think we could get really inventive. And you have the robotics teams at so many schools that are literally solving big world problems at 14 years of age. I am absolutely gobsmacked at how amazing they are. But you could have extracurriculars in this, right? So you could balance your extracurriculars between jujitsu and all of these wonderful athletics, as well as what's accelerating our mind and learning technology. So we can do that as well. And in some instances, there may be outside of school overall, there may be community efforts and school efforts that these children can be a part of. So it's going to take quite an effort on a few fronts, but it's absolutely doable when we start to say technology is friend, not foe, and we have to figure out the right balance. Especially, I'm going to harken back to a time when it's not just what all to learn, it's how to learn more quickly and to be more adaptable. Yeah. And these are my ideas. I think they hold a lot of merit. I am open to more in the comments when we put this out there because it's going to take a lot of minds from a lot of different industries, not just education. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, when you're educating and, hoping to send people out to those industries, you want those industries to be having given you feedback about what their needs are. So it is a little
Look what we've
cyclical
done
there.
with Rutgers. I've been with Rutgers now, executive education, 15 years, and this is the 10th technology.
Mm.
I mean, and we were able to strike a balance. And I was just a part of it. Y'all did this, but creating these mini MBAs, these accelerated programs, whether on site, remote, or best of both worlds is always a blend, right? And being able to have these so we can continue to stay ahead or stay up to date. So there are ways and we can learn. I think that community colleges are going to go through a renaissance between people skills and between these bursts of learning. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time, but it will take everyone being part of that and working together with academia, yeah, in those three buckets. Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, CK, it's been another wild ride of an hour with you. I thank you so much for coming back
Yes,
with me to address the many questions that we received on this, you know, um, really amazing topic.
yes.
So appreciate you so much. And
Yeah.
while they are not here watching this, as it takes place, I want to thank our audience too, who shared, questions, comments, and concerns so thoughtfully during the webinar.
Me too.
Um, and CK, I look forward to having you back, and I look forward to seeing everyone again soon at a future virtual lunch and learn.
And we have to thank you. This is actually extra work for Margaret too. So, rock out. But let's keep learning. Let's keep
Yes, we're
asking
we're we're in it
questions.
together.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.